In the year 3089, humanity had evolved beyond its humble beginnings. The stars were no longer distant dreams, but neighborhoods in a vast cosmic city. Earth had become the heart of a sprawling empire, with colonies spread across hundreds of systems. It was an age of prosperity, peace, and technological wonders. However, the universe had its own secrets, lurking just beyond the reach of human understanding. On the outermost edge of human-occupied space lay a small, icy planet named Vorith. It was an insignificant world, barren and lifeless, used mainly as a research outpost for studying dark matter anomalies. Life on Vorith was uneventful, with scientists dedicating their days to routine observations and occasional data transmissions back to the central research facility on Terra Prime. That is until one day, the outpost received an unusual signal. At first, it seemed like background noise, the kind of static that was common in the far reaches of space. But as the scientists filtered through the data, the noise transformed into something more structured, something intentional. The signal carried an intricate pattern, resembling a coded message. Dr. Olivia Cross, the lead scientist at Vorith, was the first to recognize its significance. "This isn't just random interference," she muttered to herself, her eyes locked on the screen. The signal repeated every 13.7 seconds, a precise rhythm that could not be natural. Her team quickly gathered around, analyzing the data. They discovered that the signal was being emitted from a vast nebula on the far side of the Andromeda Galaxy, a region that had been designated as unexplored and hazardous due to intense electromagnetic storms. The team debated their next steps. The signal's complexity suggested intelligence, but its origin within a chaotic nebula raised concerns. After much deliberation, Dr. Cross decided to send a probe to investigate. The probe, named Pathfinder 9, was equipped with advanced sensors and a powerful FTL drive, capable of reaching the nebula within days. As the probe launched, a sense of unease settled over the outpost. They had no idea what lay within the nebula, nor who, or what, had sent the signal. The days following Pathfinder 9's departure were filled with anticipation. The scientists watched the probe's progress on their monitors, each passing moment increasing their anxiety. Then, on the fifth day, the probe reached the nebula. It began transmitting images and data back to Vorith. What they saw defied all expectations: a massive structure hidden within the swirling clouds of gas and dust. The construct was unlike anything humanity had encountered. A colossal ring, rotating slowly, its surface adorned with glowing symbols that pulsed with an eerie blue light. "Is it a ship? A station?" Dr. Cross wondered aloud. The construct was far too large to be a mere vessel. It was more like a gateway, a door to some other part of the universe. The team marveled at its scale and complexity, but as they continued to study the images, a creeping dread began to take hold. The symbols on the ring seemed to shift and change, almost as if they were alive. Suddenly, Pathfinder 9's feed went dark. The probe systems failed, and all communication was lost. Panic ensued at the outpost as they scrambled to re-establish contact, but it was no use. The probe was gone, swallowed by the nebula, and whatever secrets it contained. Dr. Cross knew they had to report this to Terra Prime immediately. The data they had collected could be invaluable, but it also posed a significant risk. If this construct was a weapon or a gateway for an unknown civilization, humanity could be in grave danger. As the message was sent to Terra Prime, Dr. Cross couldn't shake the feeling that they had stirred something that should have remained hidden. Little did she know, the event set in motion by Pathfinder 9 would soon engulf not just Vorith, but all of humanity. The first ripples of the disturbance reached Terra Prime within hours of the probe's disappearance. Systems across the galaxy began experiencing unexplainable anomalies. Power surges, communication disruptions, and unexplained energy fluctuations. On the outskirts of Terra Prime, a massive blackout plunged the city into darkness, causing widespread panic. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session, summoning the best minds from across human space. Among them was General Aaron Stokes, a veteran of countless military campaigns and a strategist known for his unyielding resolve. As reports of the anomalies poured in, Stokes knew that humanity was facing an unprecedented threat. "We need to prepare," he declared. "Whatever's out there, it's coming, and it's not friendly." Dr. Cross and her team were called to present their findings to the Council. As they detailed the events on Voreth and the discovery of the construct, a hush fell over the assembly. The implications were clear. Humanity had stumbled upon something far beyond its understanding, and the consequences were now unfolding across the galaxy. General Stokes, now tasked with leading the defense of human space, ordered the immediate mobilization of the fleet. For the first time in decades, humanity prepared for war. The message was clear. Whatever had been awakened would soon learn that humans were not to be trifled with. The universe might shiver, but it would not break them. The days following Dr. Cross's report were marked by unease and escalating chaos. Humanity's interconnected empire, usually humming with the predictable rhythm of trade and communication, was now fractured by anomalies that defied explanation. Across dozens of colonies, systems blinked out one by one, as if the universe itself was taking deep breaths and exhaling darkness. It became apparent that whatever the probe had disturbed in the nebula was now spreading like a virus, disrupting the very fabric of space and time. On Terra Prime, the Galactic Council struggled to maintain order. General Aaron Stokes, now appointed as the Supreme Commander of Defense Forces, was tasked with spearheading humanity's response. His first directive was clear: find out exactly what humanity was dealing with and prepare for the worst. Stokes knew that humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to adapt and overcome. But this time, the enemy was unlike anything they had faced, a threat that was as mysterious as it was overwhelming. Dr. Cross was summoned to a secure briefing with Stokes and his top advisors. The room was tense, filled with high-ranking military officers and leading scientists from every major colony. Holographic projections displayed the latest data: energy spikes, failing starships, entire systems going dark. Dr. Cross, normally composed, found herself struggling to keep her voice steady as she recounted the probe's final moments. "This construct," she explained, pointing to the image of the vast ring hidden in the nebula, "is not just an object. It's a mechanism, a gateway of some kind, and it's active." "What kind of gateway?" Stokes pressed, his expression stern. "We don't know," Dr. Cross admitted. "But if our probe's readings are correct, it's not just signaling. It's reaching out, altering space around it. We've already seen evidence of gravitational anomalies that could destabilize entire star systems." The room fell silent. Stokes studied the projection, his mind racing with possibilities. "So it's a weapon," he concluded, his voice laced with grim determination. Dr. Cross shook her head. "It's more than that. It's not simply destroying, it's transforming. Adapting. We've detected changes in the local star fields and the composition of nearby asteroids. Whatever this construct is, it's manipulating matter and energy on a scale we've never seen." Stokes turned to his tactical advisors. "Then we can't afford to sit back. We need a full mobilization of our fleet. Our first objective: find a way to neutralize this threat." Dr. Cross interjected, her voice firm. "General, this isn't something we can just shoot out of the sky. If this is a gateway, destroying it could trigger an even bigger catastrophe. We need to understand what it's doing, and why." Stokes nodded, recognizing the weight of her words. "Agreed. But we'll need to act fast. We can't let this thing continue to destabilize our systems. We need to get closer, find out what it wants." As preparations for a recon mission began, Stokes made a bold decision. He would lead the operation personally. The plan was to deploy a specialized task force, equipped with the latest stealth technology and quantum sensors, directly into the heart of the nebula. Their goal: gather intel on the construct, assess its threat level, and, if possible, disable it. Aboard the flagship Valor's Edge, the mood was tense. Engineers and scientists worked side by side with seasoned soldiers, all driven by the urgency of their mission. Stokes addressed his crew with a rousing speech, emphasizing the gravity of their task and the resilience of the human spirit. "Whatever this is," he said, "it underestimates us. It doesn't know the strength of humanity, the will that drives us. We're not just fighting for our survival. We're fighting for every colony, every person who calls our empire home. We've faced the unknown before, and we've always come out stronger. Today is no different." As the fleet set course for the nebula, Dr. Cross monitored the task force's progress from a command center on Terra Prime. She felt a mix of pride and fear, pride for humanity's resolve, but fear for what they might find. The construct had already demonstrated its vast power, and there was no telling what awaited them inside the nebula. The journey through the nebula was treacherous. Electromagnetic storms battered the fleet, distorting sensors and communications. The swirling gas clouds and erratic gravitational fields made navigation a constant challenge. But the Valor's Edge and its escorts pressed on, driven by a singular purpose. As they approached the construct, its scale became even more apparent. The ring loomed before them, its surface shimmering with those same shifting symbols that had been captured by Pathfinder 9. Stokes ordered the fleet to hold position at the perimeter, while a team of scientists and engineers began scanning the structure. "Whatever we do it carefully," Stokes instructed. "No direct contact until we understand what we're dealing with." The first scans revealed a complex network of energy conduits running through the ring, pulsating in time with an unknown rhythm. The structure seemed to be drawing power from the nebula itself, feeding on the swirling energies around it. As the team continued their analysis, they detected a faint signal emanating from the ring, similar to the original one that had reached Vorith, but now stronger, more insistent. "We're getting closer," Dr. Cross observed, her eyes glued to the live feed. "The signal, it's almost like a heartbeat." Then, without warning, the construct began to change. The symbols on its surface flared brightly, and the ring started to spin faster. Low hum filled the air, resonating through the hulls of the ships. The energy readings spiked, and alarms blared throughout the fleet. "Pull back," Stokes shouted, but it was too late. A massive shockwave erupted from the ring, rippling through space and knocking the fleet off course. Systems overloaded, and several smaller ships were caught in the blast, spinning out of control. As the fleet struggled to regain its footing, a new horror unfolded. The center of the ring began to glow, revealing a vortex of swirling light and darkness. A portal. From within, shadowy shapes began to emerge, each one monstrous and unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. The portal was open, and something was coming through. "Prepare for combat," Stokes ordered, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Defensive positions now." As the first of the creatures breached the portal, Stokes realized the enormity of their mistake. They hadn't just found a gateway, they had opened a door, and whatever lay beyond was now pouring into their universe. The battle for humanity's survival had just begun. The Valor's Edge rocked violently as the first of the creatures surged from the portal, a writhing mass of shadow and energy that defied description. It was like nothing in human records, a fusion of shifting forms that seemed to flicker between solid and ethereal, existing both in and out of phase with the universe as humanity knew it. The creatures moved with an unnatural fluidity, defying the laws of physics and logic. The fleet's initial response was swift. Defensive shields were raised, and weapons systems primed. "Fire at will," Stokes commanded, his voice steady despite the chaos. The ship's railguns and plasma cannons roared to life, unleashing a barrage of firepower. Blazing projectiles streaked through space, converging on the advancing creatures. For a moment, it seemed as though humanity's might would prevail. The creatures recoiled under the onslaught, their forms flickering like static on a broken screen. But then, in a chilling display of adaptability, the creatures shifted, their bodies twisted and contorted, absorbing the energy of the attacks. They grew larger, their movements more aggressive and coordinated. They lashed out with tendrils of pure energy that sliced through shields and hulls alike. Ships shuddered under the impact, systems short-circuited, and explosions rippled across the fleet. On the bridge of the Valor's Edge, Stokes watched in horror as one of the escort frigates disintegrated under a barrage of strikes. His mind raced as he weighed their options. Redirect all power to shields. Focus fire on one target at a time. Dr. Cross's voice crackled over the comms, frantic but clear. General, these creatures aren't just feeding on our weapons. They're adapting to them. We need a different approach. Stokes gritted his teeth. Suggestions, Doctor. There's a pattern to their movements. An energy signature that's harmonizing with the portal. If we can disrupt that frequency, we might be able to destabilize them. Then let's make it happen. Use whatever data we've got and find a way to break that link. As the crew worked feverishly, Dr. Cross delved into the data streams, cross-referencing the energy patterns with every known variable in their archives. It was like trying to decipher an alien language spoken through the medium of light and sound. But slowly, a pattern began to emerge. A rhythmic pulse that tied the creatures to the portal, as if they were extensions of the construct's will. We need to target the portal directly, Cross advised, her fingers flying over the controls. If we can disrupt its energy flow, it should weaken the creatures. But it's a precision strike. We'll need to get close. Stokes nodded, the weight of the decision pressing on him. All right. Helm, take us in. All ships, form up and concentrate fire on the portal itself. This is going to be tight. The Valor's Edge surged forward, cutting through the debris of battle. The other ships followed suit, their engines burning hot as they pushed closer to the vortex. The creatures reacted instantly, swarming to protect the portal. The fleet's guns blazed, punching through the defensive line as they carved a path to the target. Dr. Cross coordinated with the weapons teams, sensing their fire to the precise frequency that she had identified. The cannons fired in a synchronized burst, beams converging on the heart of the portal. The construct shuddered, its spinning slowing as the energy conduits flared and dimmed in rapid succession. The creatures hesitated, their forms wavering as the portal's integrity faltered. We're making progress, Cross exclaimed, hope flickering in her voice. But the victory was short-lived. A second wave of creatures emerged, larger and more aggressive, their forms more defined. It was as if the construct was adapting too, learning from their tactics and countering with new horrors. Stokes slammed his fist against the console. We're running out of time. Dr. Cross, can we close the portal? It's not just about closing it, Cross replied, her tone urgent. We need to sever its connection completely, or it'll just keep reopening. If we overload the portal with an inverse pulse, an anti-frequency, it might collapse in on itself. But it'll take everything we've got, Stokes realized, including the ship's core. Cross nodded grimly. Yes, General. It's a one-shot deal. Stokes took a deep breath. All right. Prepare the core for detachment. We'll use it as a makeshift bomb. The Valor's Edge maneuvered closer, dodging the swarming creatures as it positioned itself near the portal. The ship's core, a fusion reactor of immense power, was jettisoned, drifting slowly toward the glowing vortex. The crew watched in tense silence, knowing that this was their last, desperate move. Stand by for detonation, Stokes ordered, his gaze fixed on the reactor as it approached the portal. All hands, brace for impact. As the core reached the threshold, Dr. Cross activated the sequence. Blinding flash erupted, the core releasing a pulse of energy that resonated against the portal's frequency. The construct shuddered violently, its form warping and twisting. The creatures let out a collective shriek, a sound that cut through space and resonated within the bones of every crew member. The portal began to collapse, its edges folding inward as the energy fields imploded. One by one, the creatures flickered and vanished, pulled back into the void from which they had emerged. The fleet rocked from the shockwave, but held formation as the portal's light dimmed and finally winked out. For a moment, there was silence. Then a collective cheer rose from the crew of the Veiler's Edge. They had done it. The portal was closed, and the creatures were gone. But the cost was heavy. Several ships were lost, and the Veiler's Edge was severely damaged, its systems flickering as it limped away from the battlefield. Stokes looked at the debris field around them, the wreckage of ships and the remnants of the creatures that had threatened to overwhelm them. "We're not done yet," Stokes said, his voice firm despite the exhaustion that weighed on him. "We need to find out who built that construct, and why it was here, because this was just the beginning." Dr. Cross nodded, her mind already racing with the implications of what they had faced. Humanity had survived this encounter, but the galaxy had been irrevocably changed. They had glimpsed the true vastness of the universe and the dangers that lay hidden within it. As the fleet regrouped and prepared to return to Terra Prime, one thing was clear: whatever had built the construct was still out there, watching, and humanity would need every ounce of its resilience and ingenuity to face what was coming next. The journey back to Terra Prime was filled with a tense, restless quiet. Despite their victory, the mood aboard the Veiler's Edge was far from celebratory. The crew was bruised and battered, their ship barely holding together after the battle. General Stokes and Dr. Cross worked tirelessly to piece together what they had learned, but there were still more questions than answers. The galaxy was no longer the familiar expanse of stars and worlds they once knew. It had become a landscape filled with shadows of unknown threats. As the Veiler's Edge docked at the orbital station above Terra Prime, Stokes immediately convened a meeting with the Galactic Council, a body that represented humanity's most advanced worlds and colonies. The council chamber was a grand, circular room with panoramic views of space, filled with delegates who had watched the events unfold from a distance. Holographic displays flickered with images of the battle, the creatures, and the collapsing portal. Stokes stood before the council, his expression grim. "We faced an enemy unlike anything we've encountered. The construct we destroyed wasn't just a random anomaly. It was a deliberate creation, possibly a weapon, designed by an intelligence far beyond our current understanding." Counselor Rhea Thorne, a seasoned leader with sharp eyes and a keen mind, leaned forward. "And you believe these creatures were sent here deliberately? To what end, General?" Dr. Cross stepped in, her voice steady despite the pressure. "The portal wasn't just a gate. It was a beacon, broadcasting across multiple dimensions. Whoever built it was testing something, or someone, and they were prepared for our response. The creatures we fought were only probes, expendable extensions of a larger force." Murmur spread through the chamber, delegates exchanging worried glances. The implications were clear. Humanity was not alone in the galaxy, and they had been noticed. Counselor Thorne spoke again, her tone firm. "What do we know about the builders? Is there any indication of their origins or intentions?" Stokes shook his head. "We're still analyzing the data. The constructs are ancient, far older than our civilization, possibly predating our entire solar system. We've dubbed them the architects of the void. But beyond that, we have little to go on. Their technology is vastly superior to ours, and it's clear they operate on a scale that we can barely comprehend." Counselor Thorne's gaze hardened. "So we're facing an unknown enemy with unknown motives, who can appear anywhere in the galaxy at will. What's our next move?" Stokes paused, considering the weight of the question. "We need to prepare, strengthen our defenses, accelerate our research into dimensional technology, and expand our reconnaissance operations. We can't afford to be caught off guard again. We must assume that this was only a first contact, a probe to test our capabilities. As the council deliberated, Stokes and Cross returned to the Veiler's Edge. They had been granted a brief respite to repair the ship and rest, but their minds were far from at ease. The galaxy felt smaller now, filled with hidden threats that could strike without warning. In the ship's war room, Dr. Cross pored over the data streams, searching for any clues that might point to the architect's intentions. The energy patterns, the creature designs, even the portal's construction, all seemed to hint at a purpose that lay just beyond human comprehension. But there was something else, something deeper, embedded in the energy signatures they had recorded. "General, take a look at this," Cross called, projecting a holographic model of the energy patterns. "It's a repeating sequence, but it's not random. It's a signal, like a coded message." Stokes frowned, studying the display. "A message? From the creatures?" "No," Cross replied, her eyes narrowing as she adjusted the model. "From the portal itself. It's broadcasting on a frequency that resonates with subspace. It's almost as if it's calling out to something." The realization hit Stokes like a physical blow. "It's a lure," he said quietly. "They weren't just testing us. They were signaling their position. But to who?" Cross nodded, her expression grim. "That's the question, isn't it? We may have closed the portal, but the signal was sent. Someone, or something, knows we're here. And they're coming." Stokes slammed his fist on the console in frustration. "Damn it. We've been reacting to everything. We need to take the initiative, find a way to track these architects before they make their next move." Cross hesitated, then spoke up. "There might be a way, but it's risky. If we can replicate the portal's energy signature, we could potentially create a counter-signal. A way to trace the architects back to their origin." Stokes raised an eyebrow. "You want to bait them?" "Essentially, yes," Cross confirmed. "But it would be controlled. We'd broadcast the signal from a remote station, far from any inhabited world, and monitor the response. It's a long shot, but it's our best chance at finding out more before they strike again." Stokes nodded thoughtfully. "Do it. Set up the parameters and coordinate with the engineering teams. We'll need to be ready for anything." The next few days were a flurry of activity as the fleet mobilized. Engineers worked tirelessly to retrofit a remote outpost with the necessary equipment to generate the counter-signal. Meanwhile, the Veiler's Edge underwent extensive repairs, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. As the operation drew closer, Stokes found himself staring out at the stars, wondering what lay beyond. Humanity had always been driven by curiosity, by a desire to explore and understand. But this was different. The architects were not an opportunity for discovery. They were a threat. Reminder that the universe was far more dangerous than anyone had ever imagined. On the day of the signal broadcast, the fleet took up defensive positions around the outpost. The station's reactors hummed to life, and the counter-signal was activated. For hours, they waited, sensors sweeping the void for any sign of a response. And then, the readings spiked. The energy levels surged as the familiar glow of a portal began to form. But this time, it was larger, much larger, than the one they had faced before. The space around the outpost distorted, bending as if under immense pressure. The portal stabilized, and from its depths emerged a vessel unlike any they had ever seen. It was vast, dwarfing even the largest of human ships, and its design defied conventional logic. An intricate lattice of shifting plates and glowing conduits, it radiated an aura of power and ancient intelligence, a silent testament to the architect's mastery over the fabric of space and time. Stokes stared at the viewscreen, feeling a chill run down his spine. "All ships, prepare for engagement. This is what we've been waiting for." The architects had arrived, and the real battle was about to begin. The fleet hung in the void, weapons primed and engines thrumming with anticipation. The architect vessel loomed before them, its sheer scale and alien design casting a shadow over the entire operation. General Stokes took a deep breath, his eyes fixed on the viewscreen. This was no longer a matter of defending humanity's territory. It was a confrontation that could shape the future of their entire civilization. "Open a channel," Stokes ordered, his voice steady despite the tension. "Let's see if they're willing to talk." The communication officers worked quickly, broadcasting the universal greeting on all known frequencies. The fleet waited in silence, every second stretching into an eternity. But there was no response, no acknowledgement, no indication that the architects even recognized their presence. Instead, the architect vessel began to move, its structure shifting and reconfiguring with fluid, mechanical grace. Energy readings spiked as panels along its surface lit up, forming intricate patterns that pulsed with an eerie rhythm. The ship was powering up for something, and the human fleet had no intention of finding out what it was. "Target their weapon systems," Stokes commanded. "All ships, fire at will." The void erupted in a blaze of light as the human fleet unleashed everything they had. Missiles streaked through the darkness, beams of concentrated energy lanced toward the architect vessel, and railguns sent hypervelocity projectiles tearing through space. The architect ship's hull shimmered, absorbing the initial impacts with a strange, rippling effect. It was as if the ship was made of liquid metal, adjusting its form to counter the barrage. Stokes gritted his teeth as he watched their weapons seemingly dissipate against the alien ship. "Just firing patterns. Focus on one point. We need to break through their defenses." The fleet regrouped, concentrating their fire on a single section of the architect ship. The combined firepower of humanity's mightiest vessels began to take its toll, and cracks appeared in the shimmering surface. But just as they seemed to gain the upper hand, the architect vessel retaliated. From its core, the ship emitted a low-frequency hum, and a wave of energy cascaded outward. It wasn't a weapon in the conventional sense. It was a disruption, a ripple that warped space and sent human ships reeling. Systems flickered, shields collapsed, and several smaller vessels were torn apart as the wave passed through them. The Valor's Edge shuddered violently, alarms blaring as the crew struggled to maintain control. "Damage report," Stokes shouted over the chaos. "Shields down to 30%. One of the officers yelled back. "Hull breaches on decks 3 and 5. We're losing power." Stokes clenched his fists, his mind racing. They couldn't match the architects in a straight fight. Their technology was simply too advanced. They needed to outthink them, find a way to exploit a weakness that even the architects hadn't accounted for. "Dr. Cross, any ideas?" Stokes asked, turning to the scientist who had been monitoring the architect vessel's energy patterns. Cross's eyes were fixed on her console, her fingers flying over the controls. "There's a pattern in their energy usage, like they're synchronizing with something outside our dimension. If we can disrupt that connection, even briefly, it might give us an opening." Stokes nodded. "Do it. Whatever you need." Cross quickly rerouted power to the ship's experimental subspace array, a piece of technology that was still in the testing phase. It was designed to interface with other dimensions, a breakthrough in humanity's understanding of the universe's deeper structures. But it was untested, and there was no guarantee it would work against something as advanced as the architects. The array hummed to life, sending out a pulse that resonated with the architect ship's energy signature. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the architect vessel flickered, its form destabilizing as the connection was disrupted. Panels along its hull began to misalign, and the energy readings dipped sharply. "Now," Stokes barked. "All ships, concentrate fire on the breach." The human fleet didn't hesitate. They poured everything they had into the destabilized section, and this time, their efforts paid off. The architect ship's defenses buckled, and a massive explosion tore through its structure. Shards of alien metal and energy cascaded outward, ripping through the void. But even in defeat, the architect vessel was formidable. As it disintegrated, it emitted a final, powerful burst of energy. One last attempt to complete whatever mission it had been sent to accomplish. The burst was a signal, transmission that echoed across dimensions, reaching far beyond the battlefield. As the architect ship's remnants faded into the darkness, the fleet regrouped, tending to their wounded and assessing the damage. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. They had faced one ship, but the architects were not a singular threat. They were a network, a collective intelligence that spanned the stars, and now they knew humanity was a force to be reckoned with. Stokes watched the remnants of the architect ship drift away, his mind already turning to the future. "We've bought ourselves some time," he said quietly. "But this is just the beginning. We need to be ready for whatever comes next." The battle with the architect vessel left scars, not just on the ships and crews that fought, but on the very fabric of human space. Reports of strange phenomena began to trickle in: distortions in space, brief flashes of alien structures appearing and disappearing, and odd fluctuations in the energy grids of distant colonies. It was as if the architect's presence had left a lingering effect, a ripple that continued to spread long after the fighting had stopped. Back on Terra Prime, the Galactic Council convened once more, this time with a renewed sense of urgency. The architects were no longer an abstract threat. They were a looming reality, a force that could strike at any time, from anywhere. General Stokes stood before the council, his expression resolute. "We've managed to fend off their first incursion, but the architects will adapt. They learn from every encounter, and they'll be better prepared next time. We need to take the fight to them." Councillor Thorne, ever the pragmatist, raised an eyebrow. "And how do you propose we do that, General? We don't even know where they're coming from." Dr. Cross stepped forward, holding up a datapad. "We've been analyzing the remnants of their signal. It's complex, but we believe we can trace it back to its source, a dimensional anchor point that links their realm with ours. It's a long shot, but if we can locate this anchor, we might be able to cut them off at the source." The council deliberated, weighing the risks and rewards of such a mission. It was a gamble, a foray into the unknown that could either turn the tide in humanity's favor or provoke an even greater retaliation. But as they debated, it became clear that inaction was no longer an option. Councillor Thorne finally spoke, her tone decisive. "We authorize the mission, but this time, we're sending our best. No half measures, no second chances. If we're going to strike at the architects, we do it with everything we've got." The Valor's Edge was once again at the forefront, leading a task force composed of humanity's most advanced ships. Engineers and scientists worked around the clock, outfitting the fleet with enhanced weaponry, reinforced shields, and experimental technology designed to counter the architect's dimensional manipulations. Stokes and Cross spent hours in strategy sessions, refining their approach and preparing for every possible scenario. As the fleet assembled at the edge of known space, a sense of resolve settled over the crews. This was more than just a mission. It was a stand for survival, a statement that humanity would not be cowed by even the most formidable of adversaries. "Commence jump," Stokes ordered, his voice steady as the fleet activated their FTL drives. The stars blurred and streaked past, and the fleet plunged into the unknown. The journey through the rift was turbulent, the very fabric of space twisting and contorting as the ships neared the architect's dimensional anchor. Sensors picked up erratic readings, and the ship's hulls groaned under the strain. But they pressed on, guided by the signal that Dr. Cross had managed to decipher. When they emerged, they found themselves in a region of space that defied conventional understanding. It was a void, a pocket dimension where the normal rules of physics didn't apply. The stars were dim and distant, and the space around them seemed to pulse with an unnatural rhythm. At the center of it all was the anchor, a massive lattice-like structure that emitted a low, resonant hum. It was the heart of the architect's network, the point from which they reached into countless dimensions. Stokes wasted no time. "All ships, target the anchor. We're shutting this down." The fleet moved as one, unleashing a barrage of firepower at the structure. But the anchor was heavily defended. Swarms of automated drones emerged from hidden ports, engaging the human ships with a ferocity that matched the architects' earlier assaults. The fleet fought back, cutting through the drones as they closed in on the anchor. Dr. Cross worked furiously at her console, coordinating the attack and adjusting their tactics on the fly. "We need to overload its core," she called out. "Direct all fire to the central node. It's the linchpin holding the whole thing together." The ships focused their attacks, hammering the central node with everything they had. The anchor's structure began to waver, its form flickering as the combined firepower overwhelmed its defenses. Finally, with a blinding flash, the node ruptured, and the anchor imploded, collapsing in on itself and taking the pocket dimension with it. The human fleet barely escaped the collapse, their ships tearing free of the rift just as it sealed shut behind them. The mission was a success. The architect's anchor was destroyed, and their immediate threat was neutralized. But the victory came at a cost. Several ships had been lost in the battle, and countless lives were sacrificed to secure the future of humanity. As the fleet regrouped and began the journey back to Terra Prime, Stokes and Cross shared a moment of quiet reflection. They had struck a blow against the architects, but the war was far from over. The architects were still out there, still watching, and humanity would need to remain vigilant, ever ready to defend their place in the cosmos. Back on Terra Prime, the victory was celebrated, but there was no mistaking the underlying tension. The galaxy had become a more dangerous place, and the architects of the void were a reminder that even in the vastness of space, humanity was not alone. General Stokes addressed the Galactic Council one final time, his voice carrying the weight of their collective experience. "We've proven that we can stand against even the most powerful of foes, but we must continue to advance, to explore, and to prepare. The architects are not just our enemies. They are a challenge, a call to rise beyond our limits, and rise we shall." The council chamber erupted in applause, but Stokes knew that the real work was just beginning. Humanity had survived its first encounter with the unknown, but the universe was full of mysteries yet to be uncovered. As the Valor's Edge prepared for its next journey, Stokes looked out at the stars, ready to face whatever lay beyond. For in the end, it was not the architects that defined humanity's destiny. It was their unyielding spirit, their drive to explore, and their courage to stand against the darkness, no matter the cost.